All right. We are going to start here with the players who I think could decide the fantasy season this year. So this isn't just necessarily, oh, this guy's going to win everyone championships. It is more, if this guy hits, it has the potential to win championships. If this guy doesn't hit, it has the potential to be maybe a little bit devastating in a few different ways. Hopefully you kind of pick up on the theme as we go along, because I don't know if I'm describing it all that well. But we start at number 5, and that is Anthony Richardson. He came up really early in mock drafts, and we have another mock draft coming up today. But he has been coming up very early in mock drafts, like too early in mock drafts, and that has been a real difficult thing, because he only played in a couple of games. Looked all right. Like, there is absolutely the promise in him, but he only played a couple of games, got hurt, and was done for the season. And again, this is why I think he has the potential to decide fantasy season, because he's going as like a top, like he is going as a very firmly placed starting quarterback. And that is a high level. He's going ahead of Burrow. He's going ahead of Kyler Murray. He is going ahead of Jordan Love and Dak Prescott and all of those guys. And we've seen barely any games from this guy. And so I just, like, on the one hand, if everyone's right and he is that dude, then this is a guy who could potentially be a league winner. But if he is not, and I get, like, quarterback, there's a bunch of good ones out there that you can go out and try to play the streaming game, so maybe it's not as impactful, but you are using a fairly high pick on this guy, and it is, I think, very concerning a little bit to be putting that much stock into a quarterback. Like, look at it this way. You have him going, if I'm remembering mock drafts right, like 4th, 5th round-ish, somewhere around there. Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams are going like 9th, 10th round. Anthony Richardson's played like 120 more minutes in the NFL than those guys have. So I think people are treating this as if it is a sure thing, and I think it is the furthest thing from a sure thing. And to be passing up on some of the running backs and wide receivers and tight ends going around him, if it works, it's going to be great. If not, that could be a bit of a concern. At 4, it's Kirk Cousins. Not necessarily for him, although if he gets back to that level, that is going to be a streaming quarterback that people are able to kind of ride for a while. And he's going at the back end of drafts, or in some not even at all. And so that way you have been able to firmly solidify your roster, and then for basically free, go out and get a high caliber starter if he is that dude. But the main thing for him is he, at the palm of his hands, has the fantasy value of Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in football, Aaron Jones, who still, I think, has some life in those legs, Jordan Addison, a young receiver, bit of a rough offseason, but a young receiver who has a ton of talent. Sorry, I'm thinking, these were the guys who he had all that in not Aaron Jones, sorry, I'm getting them mixed up, but he had all of these guys last year. I'm still making a point. I just got confused on which one I'm making. He had Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. He didn't have Aaron Jones. That was the Minnesota now. But with Alexander Madison and TJ Hawkinson. And all of those guys, Addison, maybe not so much, but like Jefferson wasn't the guy who you thought he would be, and on down the line. And so now this year, he has the fantasy in his hands of Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. All 3 going in the top 6, 7 rounds of draft. Bijan in the first, Drake London in the second. So if Kirk Cousins is just bad, then all of a sudden, or just hasn't recovered from these injuries or whatever, he has the potential to ruin a 1st round pick, ruin a 2nd round pick, and ruin a top 5 tight end, all in just one fell swoop. So that is a little bit of a concern. But that being said, if he's just back, if he is the guy, then as I said before, this is a dude that you can go out and pick up and basically get for free, either in waiver wire or at the end of your drafts, and just roll with him. And if he's awesome, then Bijan might be, like, knocking on the door as the best player in fantasy. And Drake London at the 2nd round could end up being a steal, given how many receivers are going ahead of him. And Kyle Pitts, again, could be a steal, given that there's, I think, 4 or 5 tight ends going ahead of him right now. So Kirk Cousins, maybe not just for him, but for how he can swing the value of these players is going to be, I think, very important to fantasy football this season. Screwed it up a little bit, but we got to the eventual point there anyway. At 3, it's Joe Burrow. Again, so many players on this offense being drafted as normal. Jamar Chase, and we've done it. And on all these mock drafts, we've ended up with Jamar Chase a lot. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those guys are being drafted as normal. Joe Burrow continues to have some wrist problems, and they tried to limit how much he's practicing as we ramp up here toward week 1. And so as we talked about with Cousins, the value of some of these other players, but also for him, he is going as QB6 right now in a lot of the mock drafts we have done. And again, 4th, 5th, 6th round, some good players in the 4th, 5th, 6th round that you're just passing on to get Joe Burrow. If the injury situation with him isn't right, again, it is him, it is Chase, and it is T. Higgins, who are all going in the top 6 rounds of drafts right now, that could just completely tank. So again, Joe Burrow has a lot of this in his hands. We're not going to do this for everyone, because you could do that for a bunch of quarterbacks, right? But at 2, it's Jameson Williams. There is a chance, and this is more kind of a boom potential, because if and maybe I should have had Jameson Williams a little bit further down on this list, because if he doesn't hit, he's going in the 10th round. It's not going to be remarkably debilitating. But I truly believe he has the potential to be this year's Puka Nacua, where he is going either late in drafts, depending on the format. Maybe you're getting him as a waiver wire guy. Probably not. He's going early enough. But still, so it's not straight line to the Puka comparison from a year ago, but he is still going in the middle to back part of a lot of these drafts. And I truly think he is a player who has the potential to really steal seasons this year. I think he has amazing game-breaking ability, and that is why I think that he can absolutely decide a lot of fantasy seasons this year. If he just turns into a number 1 wide receiver from the 10th, 11th, 12th round, then you have an unbelievable steal and have just been able to create this dynamic offensive weapon out of nowhere. At number 1, it's Christian McCaffrey. And this one seems maybe a little bit like a cop-out, saying like, oh yeah, the guy who goes first overall has a chance to decide a lot of fantasy leagues. Last year, he was so good, he was winning fantasy championships on his own. And so that is kind of the argument for taking him with the first overall pick, is that like he has the potential to just do that. That being said, he is already dealing with some injuries in camp, and basically the entire San Francisco offense is either holding out or banged up a little bit. And I have real concerns that this player is going to be able to replicate the health he had last year and the production that he had from a season ago. And if he just isn't that clear-cut number 1 guy, then all of a sudden you have to wait a very long time to get your 2nd and then 3rd pick. And you then, I think a lot of times strategically are going, well, look, a lot of really good receivers that come off the board, I kind of need to get one of them. So you are kind of off, you now have invested in the running back position, but you don't want to go, okay, well, I'm just going to double up and get a 2nd running back because I have CMC. But also, now that it has come back around and say in a 12-team league, you now have the 24th overall pick, there's odds are like 10, 11, 12 wide receivers have come off of the board. So you're not even getting one of those. And so it can just be crushing to you. But again, this is a player who has shown he has the capability of just winning fantasy championships. And so it is a really, really risky play. And look, all of them, like a bunch of 1st round picks last year didn't pan out. But Christian McCaffrey, I feel like this year is a real swing type of a player there. So those are the players who I think will decide fantasy football championships positively or negatively this season.